You guys might already know how my journey started. 3 years ago I was a web developer, and I took off across the country in my orange Jeep, and I've pretty much been recording everything that's happened since. However, I very seldom talk about any aspect of my life before that, particularly my previous vehicles. In the mid-1990s, my family had a gray 1990 Jeep Cherokee Laredo two-door. It had an automatic transmission and those really cool bronze-tinted rear windows that you don't see anywhere anymore. I wasn't an off-road recreationalist at the time, but I was a teenager with a new driver's license, so I loved that Jeep. Next, I had a 1990 Jeep Wrangler Sahara with the carbureted 258 six-cylinder engine. This was in the late 1990s, and it was in this Jeep that I discovered four-wheel drive culture and recreational trail rides. It was at this point that I got addicted to four-wheel drive recreation. I soaked up information like a sponge, and my Jeep Wrangler got a 2.5-inch Pro Comp suspension with 32-inch tires. Unfortunately, after a few years, a 1990 Wrangler was rear-ended and totaled. No one was hurt, but that was the end of that vehicle. So having started with a Jeep Cherokee, I went back in that direction and got a 1995 Jeep Cherokee SE with the 5-speed transmission. The SE model was just a Spartan base model Cherokee. And at this point, I lived and breathed four-wheeling, so the creature comforts didn't matter. I just wanted a blank canvas that I could modify and take to the trails. It had a Detroit locker in the rear axle, open front, Rubicon Express 4.5-inch suspension, and 32-inch BF Goodrich mud terrains. That Jeep served me really well, but the new model Wrangler, the TJ, was surging in popularity at the time, and I had my sights set on one of those. I traded in my 95 Cherokee for a brand new 1999 Chili Pepper Red Jeep Wrangler Sport. For recreational trail riding, I think this was my favorite. It was small, it was nimble, it could articulate really well, and it could drive up walls. This Jeep had an Old Man Emu 2.5-inch suspension, PowerTrax no-slip lockers in the front and rear axles, and it had an Atlas II transfer case with 4.3-to-1 gear reduction. Now that was a lot of transfer case for an otherwise light-duty build, but that was awesome. The gear reduction with a 5-speed transmission, I loved it. It was at this point my son Cole was born, and I was starting to lose interest in recreational trail riding. Now don't get me wrong, I love being out there on the trail, even to this day. But the problem was, I already knew where all the trails at the off-road park went, and I got my excitement from not knowing what's up around the bend. Exploring. So I sold my 1999 Wrangler and replaced it with a white 1996 Jeep Cherokee Sport. I put a 2-inch Old Man Emu suspension on the 96 Cherokee and pretty much left it at that. It was a decent vehicle. It was practical for the family, and it allowed me to get out and do some exploring from time to time. But I would say, of all of my vehicles, it's the one that I was the least excited about. Then one day I was out driving, and I saw a beautiful gray 2001 Jeep Cherokee Limited. 2001 was the last year that they made the Jeep Cherokee XJ, and I really liked the look of this one. I had a vision of how I wanted to modify it, so I scooped it up, figuring that I'd keep that Jeep for some time, and I did. I had it for about 10 years. It was around this time in the mid-2000s that I discovered the Expedition Portal forum on the internet, and subsequently overlanding and the idea behind it. There I was introduced to a kind of four-wheel drive recreation that was more aligned with my personal interests, and I got to know a lot of kindred spirits who also had a penchant for exploration. So I outfitted my 2001 Cherokee with overland travel in mind. It had a 2-inch Old Man Emu suspension system, 245/75/16 tires, an ARB bull bar that was painted to match with a worn M8000 winch. Shortly after I turned 40, I sold my 2001 Cherokee to a friend at Roush Creek Off-Road Park, and I bought my orange 2013 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon off the used lot, and the rest is history. Now I know that I've had 7 Jeeps, but I do not and will not buy a vehicle because of its brand or the badge on its front grille. I buy a vehicle because of the merits of the vehicle itself. Over the years, it's become clear to me that it does not matter what you drive. Just make sure it puts a smile on your face and get out here on the trail. We're all out here for the same reason, and it is a lot of fun seeing all the different vehicle makes and models at work. Come on, Zipper. Not now. I'm out in a splotch of desert only a few miles from the house because I wanted to show you my awning. This is an ARB 2200 awning, and I believe this particular part number has been discontinued by ARB, but only the length, only the 2200 part. ARB still makes nearly identical awnings, but just slightly different lengths. This particular awning can manage rain just fine, but if it starts to rain, you want to lower one of these corner poles and put a big slope in your awning so that the water is allowed to run off from the top. Now, a strong gust of wind will also take it out. The wind will catch it from underneath, flip it over, and that'll cause the poles to taco and they'll be done. Now, I always, 100% of the time, use these guy lines, so the wind doesn't catch me off guard, and 99% of the time, these do the job nicely, as long as the stakes are firmly in the ground. This is a good awning. It's not the best or the most clever awning on the market, but I encourage you to keep it simple, because there's a high probability of mishap, whether that's the wind, rain, snow. This particular model, and others like it, are relatively cost-effective to repair or replace. So I feel like ARB's awning selection strikes a nice balance between functionality and practicality. This is the deluxe screen room by ARB specifically for the 2200 awning. I consider this absolutely essential, and even though you don't see me use it that much, all it takes is one night of really nightmarish mosquitoes, and you will have a place of refuge. So I use this for bugs more than anything, but you can also extend the front flap for some additional shade. This is particularly nice if you're settled in at a campsite for a week or two and you just want a little bit extra comfort and protection. This wall that's up against the Jeep unzips entirely. Just put it down like so, and now I can open the rear door. And it's a really nice feature. There are some gaps here between the body and the fender, so there's not a perfect seal to keep the bugs out, but you do have full access to the Jeep from the awning room and vice versa. It's a lovely spot, but I am going back to the house tonight. And I am going to put this away properly tomorrow. In the meantime, just put this in here. Looking back at Ouray, Colorado in May of 2018, when I drove OK 4-wheel drive's Toyota Tacoma over Engineer Pass. Hopping like that is bad, and it can cause something to break. So when that happens, I take a deep breath, go back, and make a small adjustment to my line. What's not to love about exploring the Rockies? This is typical Aspen Loop scenery, bright green trees, towering gray rocks, and a deep blue sky.
What an awesome day. Ouray was amazing. I spent a few hours there, walked around. I was happy to experience it a little bit, and that pizza really hit the spot.
That Jeep was driven by Ray and Nisa Cole, the owners of the Stone Bean Coffee Shop in Clinton, New Jersey. Their shop is just a short drive from OK 4-wheel drive, and it was a complete coincidence meeting them in the Colorado mountains that day.
Odom Point. This is a scenic overlook right next to Engineer Mountain, which is right over there. We're at 13,000 feet, and this is just extraordinary. This might be the best four-wheel drive route I've ever experienced in my life. It was technical. It's been beautiful the whole way. I love it.
I went back to my Moab footage from March of 2018, and there's not much story here, so this is more like a short 2-minute montage featuring the Hell's Revenge Trail and Fins and Things.
It's Tuesday morning, March 27th. I'm on the Hell's Revenge 4x4 trail in Moab, Utah, enjoying the sunrise.
I got there at the crack of dawn and it was awesome. First, it was beautiful, and second, I had the trail all to myself. We're now on Fins and Things, and I enjoyed this trail a little bit more than Hell's Revenge. Since I was traveling solo, I didn't do any of the big obstacles, I just stuck to the core trails to play it safe. This footage is about 2 years old as I'm recording this, and I really don't feel like it does Moab justice, so I need to make a return trip in the near future and run these trails again.
Glacier Gulch trail, bit technical, very wet, and I feel like I'm wearing too much. It was 50 degrees. It is 50 degrees, but I'm breaking a sweat.
This hiking trail near Smithers, British Columbia was insane. This wasn't a planned destination, it was just a trailhead that was down the mountain by my campsite, and I wanted to see where it went.
Oh. There's a cable. I did not see that at first. This isn't the end. It's just a coffee break.
This sign cracked me up because I was about a mile in and the trail was already very challenging. Nothing like slippery rocks, falling rocks, glacial hazards, and high mountain weather to spice things up.
I see. Look at that smug rock. What are you smiling at, rock?
The trail was hard to identify across the rock fields, so you had to keep an eye out for cairns and tape markers like this one.
Holy. This is awesome!
An artifact presumably from an ancient mining operation. I'm near the upper end of the hike now, which was 4 kilometers or 2.5 miles. It wasn't a long hike, but it was definitely very, very strenuous. The trail ended at this jaw-dropping glacier, which was such an awesome payoff for an already beautiful hike.
This is where I stop. I'm not going in, on, or under. It's too unstable. But wow. Look at this formation. That is so awesome.
It's Friday night, May 15th, 2020. This past week, Arizona lifted the stay-at-home restriction for COVID-19. And while we still have to be mindful and do our best to mitigate spread, next week I'm going to prep the Jeep and go mobile again. For the time being, I'm going to stay in this general region just in case I need a place to fall back to for any reason. My biggest challenge is that before I used to depend heavily on public spaces to access the internet and to do work on my computer. Although recently I upgraded my cellular data plans, so that's not mission critical anymore. Accessing the internet is one thing, but when I need to use my computer all day, the back of my Jeep essentially becomes my office. And on a hot summer day in the Southwest, I'll figure that out. I can travel to a cooler climate if I have to. Shout out to my friends John and Becky for accepting me into their home, into their guest house, which over the past 2 months has very much become my home. So yes, it is going to be very hard to leave. They've become like family to me and have made me feel very comfortable and very welcome. John and Becky, you might be watching. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your friendship and your boundless hospitality. Alright, as for everyone else, thank you guys for watching. Keep hanging tough, and I will see you again next week. Likely in completely different circumstances.